Welcome back to my channel. As you know, I wrote back there this book, published it about 2 years ago with my back to Havana. I'm retelling my story, how I grew up in Cuba, left in a raft, and made a life here in the US. I wanted to start going over each of the chapters of the book in very short videos, providing the reader some context of what's happening at that time. As you know, I grew up in Cuba in this small town called Santa Fe, where it's at the western end of Havana. And let me find some pictures here. I had set up. And within Santa Fe, there are other smaller towns. One of them is, or areas, one of them is called Roble, which is the name of this chapter, chapter 4. And Roble, it translates literally to the oak, right? And I will go there often because my best friend Micho lived there, and we will go, meet up and go do weights or go swimming or go to parties at night and whatnot. And this is where this one chapter takes place. But a little bit of context first, right? So here is our beloved Santa Fe. It's a beach town. No, not really a whole lot of sand, but very sharp rocks. This is an abandoned pier that has fallen apart, and I used to live like right behind it, maybe like a block away. And you see the very sharp rocks that adorn the coast. It's not very welcoming. But here's Santa Fe, right? Just within the city of Havana. Just a smaller section. For context, I left Cuba in '94, and during that time, the Soviet Union had stopped supporting Cuba economically, so there was lacking of everything, right? And that's what brings about this specific episode. I was walking towards Micho's house, my friend's house, and I heard a squeaky noise behind me, and it was a bicycle. I could tell from that repetition of that squeaky noise, but I didn't look back. I wasn't sure what it would be. It was dark street. There was no street lights, and it was the evening, so I didn't want to look back. Once it passed me, I started to have palpitations and feeling a little weak at the knees. The bicycle was occupied by two guys, the guy riding the bike and the guy sitting in the back. The guy sitting in the back was holding on his shoulders a cow's leg, right? and it may sound strange to many of you, but a couple of days ago, I watched a documentary called The Cameraman, or Havana and the Cameraman, Cuba and the Cameraman, by John Alsper. And he documents some of that, right? During this time in Cuba, average folks would go into the fields at night and butcher a cow, a government's cow, to feed themselves, to put some of that extra meat into the black market to make some money. And that happened quite a bit. And I was being witness of some of that. And immediately when that happened, I knew I was in trouble. Why? Because the government was punishing severely folks who were killing these government cows. And, they could go to prison for 20 years or more. And I'm sure these two guys that passed me in that bicycle were very adamant about making sure that no one saw them. There were no witnesses, and I apparently was a witness. So they passed me, pulled over on my side of the street. Actually, I have a picture. A friend of mine found a picture for me of the very same block. This picture is from 2 days ago, and it looks just like that, right? I was on the right side of the sidewalk, and this guy pulled over, dumps the leg of the cow, and walked towards me holding something on his between his pants and his shirt. He's got his hand stuck between his pants and his shirt. And I am pretty sure there must have been a very large knife there, right? You don't go kill a cow and sever a leg of a cow, right? A full-grown cow with a kitchen knife, right? It must have been a huge knife and very sharp, I'm sure too. So he walks towards me, and when he's within, close distance enough that he can make up my face and I can make up his, although it was dark. He asked me, "Who are you and why are you here?" Immediately, I thought, well, I have been living in this town, Santa Fe, for about 2 years now, maybe 3, and I visited this part of town, at Roble, the Oak, fairly often, but not perhaps often enough for the neighbors to know me. So telling him who I was of no good. Telling him that I lived in Santa Fe and where I lived perhaps was also no good, because he may not have been familiar with my part of town. I figured what I needed was a passport, right? I needed a passport into his trust. And I leveraged my friend who lived 2 blocks away, Micho, right, who I was going to visit. And I said to him, I am Micho's best friend. I'm going to meet him. He lives 2 blocks away. He took a little bit of a leaning back on his upper body, and without taking his eyes off me, he called out to his buddy in crime and said, "Hey, do you recognize him hanging out with Micho?" Thank God. The guy in the bicycle said, "Yes, I do recognize him." So he basically said, "Hey, listen, you can't be walking around in the dark. We don't know who you are. People don't know who you are. This is dangerous." Walked back, picked up the hide, the big chunk of meat and bones and skin, put it back in his shoulders, got on the bicycle, and they rode away down this street right here towards those trees. There's a park down there. And then I don't know what happened. I knew of them, but I didn't know them well. By the time I got to Micho's house, my friend, I was shaking, my heartbeats. I could hear my heartbeats. I was totally freaked out. Obviously, it was a very unexpected event, and it was all well, right? But I wanted to tell that story to any potential reader of the book, to give you an aspect of understanding of what Cuba was like in the 90s. Ourselves in our home, we made custom made homemade rum. We made this rum called, people call it in Cuba, chispa, or like a spark, train spark, because it was very rough. It was very rough in taste. It was very rough in flavor. Smelled very strong. Actually, smelled like very bad tequila. And we made that at home, and we sold it, and it was a profitable enterprise, but it was illegal. We were risking prison time, my family and I, for having this enterprise at home. And a lot of folks had some sort of black market interaction where they consume, the daily life items like milk, rice, bread, from the black market, but they contributed with something that they were able to get their hands on. We were able to get our hands on the raw materials to make the rum, the homemade moonshine type of rum. And these folks had the means to, and the courage to, and the, I don't know what to call it, right? To go into a farm and bring a cow to the side and slaughter it, cut off a limb by hacking, right, with a knife. There was no machinery. It was just by brute force hacking this leg off the cow and leaving the rest behind, and using this leg to feed themselves and profit in the black market. So thank you for your time and your attention. Again, chapter 4 with my Back to Havana book. Thank you. Comment, comment, sign up below.